How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the next episode. As you can see, we're already way into painting here. What I did was I taped off and covered all the teak wood that sits back here. You could have taken it off if it's important to you. I decided to cover it. Take a look. This is what we call oyster white. It's an oil-based paint, top side. I'll show you here in just a little bit what brand I ended up using. Came out pretty smooth. It does show a little bit of imperfections in the gel coat, so keep that in mind. Took off all the hardware on the rear compartments. But all together, I'm pretty happy with it. Let me show you along the sides what I did here. All right. Taped off the motor vents here. Now, if you're wondering how I applied this, I used a spray gun, not a high volume, low pressure, a HVLP, not one of those. Rather, I used a conventional style, a little bit cheaper. It's what we used to use in the old days, the spray. It came out pretty nice. What do you think? You'll see there on the bow side where I tied in the floor, you can see a little bit of imperfections. We'll jump in the boat here in a little bit and I'll talk about that. One of my subscribers was asking how I tied these two in, and we'll flip over here in just a little bit and talk about that. But this is pretty much it. Nice glossy finish. So one of the things to note here, which I made the mistake of, and I'm gonna recommend that you don't make the same mistake, which was I used the roll and tip method. So you roll the oil-based paint on, and then you flatten it with a nice paintbrush. And I tried that, and what ended up happening here was I ran into a lot of orange peel. It looked terrible. That's why it's taken me so long to post this video, because I ended up sanding all of it down all over again and respraying it the way that I wanted to initially. So it's kind of what it looks like now. Came out pretty good. This is my second go around. But yeah, if you get a chance and you're considering doing your project, definitely do the spray part if you can. If you're in a neighborhood, obviously it's going to be kind of tough. Take a look on the interior. You see where I cut these holes for the new speakers? Yeah, it came on, you know, it applied pretty well. Pretty happy with it. Got the motor installed. And coming around here, see my new speakers. I'll talk about that here in a little bit too. And taped off all the pertinent stuff over there. All right, let's make our way to the front here. Obviously, with carpet going in here, we weren't too worried about overspray. All right, so someone was asking me in a comment earlier how I tied the floor, the epoxy Kevlar floor, into the existing fiberglass up front. And what I did was I used, see if you can see that here. We tied it in with Kevlar. It's Kevlar and epoxy in the back, just like that. And the same up front. The problem, and this is kind of a mistake that I made, and if I could have done it different, what I would have done is the following. I was pretty much on this kick where I wanted to make sure all the repairs that I did were all done in epoxy and Kevlar, including where I tied in the bow here, the top piece with the flooring. It's strong. I could tell you right now it's going to be stronger than what was in here originally, which I'm glad for. But what you end up sacrificing along the way is appearance. Because someone was asking, how do I tie this in? How does it look when you go to put gel coat on it? And I'm not using gel coat. I'm using the topside paint. But what ends up happening, and let's see, let's zoom in, I don't know, like right here. So we had cut originally to about right here, I believe. This is one of the thicker sections. So this is probably maybe a 1-inch connection here. And the problem is with this gap, you're gonna have to fill it in with something. So I used Kevlar and epoxy, and I could tell you right now, it's super strong. It's not flimsy by any means, but the problem here is with Kevlar, it doesn't sand. Really, it doesn't really sand at all. So what ends up happening is if you try to lay Kevlar as flat as you can and you try to sand it to kind of make it nice and smooth, so when you go to apply your gel coat over this, you don't have all these bumps from the Kevlar in there and these little pieces. It's almost impossible to get away from that. So in retrospect, what I would have done along this front section is I would have said, okay, look, I know I'm rebuilding this whole boat with epoxy and Kevlar, but let's just make one exception and let's do this in 1708 bi-axial fiberglass and epoxy. And I would have done it that way. This way I would have still used the epoxy, but I would have used 1708. And the reason why that's important is if you would have used 1708 to tie this in, and even I probably could have even still used Kevlar in the back, like you see here. That's what it looks like. So there's still Kevlar in the back, but what I would have done here is use a 1708, and then you could have just sanded it smooth, and then you wouldn't have had these little rough spots from where the Kevlar is, because you can't sand this out. I'm telling you right now, if you bust out the die grinder or anything and you try to sand this out, these are strands of Kevlar and they will not sand out. You can fill it. You can use some filler to fill it in, and I did that actually a little bit to kind of smooth it out. But what I found is it's too hard in these areas. You're gonna have to make it so thick with the filler that it's not worth it. So kind of this part you're not going to be able to get away from, and the carpet will go to about right here, so you will have this little anomaly. I was thinking about doing, just to kind of hide where the Kevlar sticks out here, is maybe run the carpet up a little bit higher, maybe run a little strand of carpet along this edge to kind of help clean up. But otherwise, I mean, that's really the only complaint that I have. So just to recap here, when you go to tie in the bow here with the flooring, consider using 1708. And it's good to have the Kevlar in the back side around there, but for this area, definitely do 1708. It'll come out cleaner. It'll be a nice look. Nice look. But I tell you what, this is definitely stronger and more flexible than the 1708 would be. But so I'm kind of happy with that piece. It's just when we consider looks, it would have been better to use 1708. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. But take a look here. Came out pretty good. Yep, real nice. If you're not into using the oil-based paint, what you could have also used is a polyurethane, which I do have some polyurethane. I'm going to test that out. Here's a shot of the setup. I believe this is like 20 bucks or so, 30 bucks from Harbor Freight. Worked fantastic, I'll tell you what. This isn't trash in the paint, by the way. Just dust from where I'm at. But anyway, this is a setup I use, not an HVLP, so requires no more than 60 PSI. Worked fantastic here. Here's the Rust-Oleum topside paint in Oyster White. It is a gloss. It offers abrasion, water resistant, all that fun stuff. So it is oil-based. If you're used to using your water-based paints, this is a little bit more durable. You'll use mineral spirits if you're going to be painting it and tipping it. If you're going to be spraying it, you need to use, I believe it's xylene is how you pronounce it. But yeah, it took me to do this whole boat. It took me roughly, I believe, 2 if not 3 quarts of this here to do the whole boat. It came out pretty good. Another question that I know you're wondering, did you spray along the backside here? And yes, I did. If you're going to be using it below the water line, it can't be under, it can't be submerged in water for any more than 48 hours. That's the typical standard. So you can use it below the water line, just it can't be long term. So if you're using it in a dock or something like that, it's not rated for it. But if you're using it for less than 48 hours in the water, you'll be fine. But just keep in mind, you won't get them to say that in writing. They just won't do it. But it will be fine. So this is the oil-based paint. Let me show you the other stuff I got. All right. Take a look here. You see where the red stripe used to be? Kind of wraps around here and goes underneath. This is what we're going to use to redo it. I'm going with the fire red. This is a polyurethane. If I could have done this whole entire boat different, I would have gotten oyster white. If not oyster white, I would have gotten it into like an off-white gloss, and I would have done it in polyurethane. Polyurethane is just, it's kind of the same chemical they use to paint cars with, and it does fade. Probably won't fade as much as this oil-based topside paint will, but in my opinion, the polyurethane is easier to work with. And if you do get any kind of issues with it, you can always buff it. You can wax it. I don't know how I feel about waxing oil-based paint, but in terms of polyurethane, it's just like, you know, same type of maintenance you would take on your car. So anyway, you'll see this in another episode. Looks like you use, well, anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, that's what I got. Fire red, polyurethane. I'm not sure how they're going to combine on the boat, but we'll see. I'll be your guinea pig if you're considering doing the same thing, but you can find both of these on Amazon and various other marine websites. But yeah, here's a quick shot of the stern drive and where the transom is. Came out pretty good. If you remember back in one of the earlier episodes, we had a live well hole there, and that is since gone. And let's walk to the front here. There was another hole here. I can see it just because I know where it is, but yeah, it's right here. There's one on the other side too. Maybe put a little bit more paint on it, second coat, just because I can kind of see it there and it kind of annoys me. But that's what it looks like. That's my painting video. Hope you liked it. I'm going to do another part here in just a little bit. I'm going to show you how I'm doing the stereo equipment. I'm using some kicker speakers. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. So I hope you like this video. If you got any more questions on painting and whatnot, let me know. I'll give you my honest opinion on painting boats and whatnot. So as always, hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you thought it was helpful. And we will catch you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody.